It's August 24th, 79 AD, a normal day in the Roman Empire. Merchants are selling goods in the Forum. Children are playing in the streets. People are going about their lives in a thriving city called Pompeii. Nobody knows that in a few hours, their entire city will be buried under volcanic ash and pumice. Nobody knows that the volcano they can see from the city, Mount Vesuvius, is about to erupt with the force of a nuclear bomb. Nobody knows that they are about to be frozen in time for nearly 2,000 years. This is the story of Pompeii, one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time, and a tragedy that killed thousands of people in minutes. Pompeii was a successful Roman city. It had about 20,000 residents. It was a port city, so it had commerce, it had trade, it was prosperous. The city had all the typical Roman infrastructure. There were forums where people conducted business. There were temples for religious worship. There were shops, bakeries, bars. There were wealthy homes with beautiful frescoes and mosaics. There was an amphitheater where they held public entertainment. It was a real, living city, with all the complexity and diversity that comes with that. The city was situated about 15 miles from Mount Vesuvius. Nobody really considered Vesuvius a serious threat. Sure, it was a volcano, but it hadn't erupted in human memory. As far as anyone in Pompeii knew, it was just a mountain. It was part of the landscape. Some people had built their homes on the slopes of Vesuvius. Some had vineyards there. The soil was incredibly fertile because of the volcanic minerals, so people actually settled near the volcano because it was good for farming. On the morning of August 24th, Mount Vesuvius woke up. At about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was an enormous explosion. The top of the mountain literally blew off. A column of volcanic material shot up into the sky. Scientists estimate it went up about 80,000 feet in about 24 minutes. It was absolutely massive. The explosion was so powerful that people in towns about 90 miles away heard it. The column that shot up from the volcano was extremely hot. It carried ash, pumice, and toxic gases. The ash was so thick that it blocked out the sun. During the middle of the day, it became dark. Not dusk dark, not twilight dark. It became absolutely black. People couldn't see their hands in front of their faces. The ash started falling. Not like snow. It fell like rain. Chunks of pumice rained down on the city. Ash piled up on the streets. It covered the roofs of buildings. It covered people. The toxic gases were killing people. When you breathe in volcanic ash and gases, it damages your lungs. It's extremely painful. People were choking. People were suffocating. There was panic in the streets. Families were trying to figure out what was happening. Parents were trying to protect their children. Some people tried to run. Some people tried to hide in their homes. Some people tried to get to the coast to escape by sea. By the evening of August 24th, the column had collapsed. When that happens, the ash and pumice start falling even faster. This is called a pyroclastic flow. A cloud of superheated gas and ash rushes down the side of the volcano at an incredibly fast speed, often over 100 miles per hour. The temperature in these flows can exceed 400 degrees Fahrenheit. When this pyroclastic flow hit Pompeii, it killed almost instantly. People who were running were frozen mid-motion. Their bodies were killed so quickly that the muscles contracted, which is why so many bodies were found in protective positions, as if they were trying to shield themselves. The pyroclastic flows continued throughout the night. Some sources describe at least 6 separate waves of superheated ash and gas pouring over the city. Each wave buried more of the city, covered more people, destroyed more buildings. By the next morning, Pompeii was completely buried. The city was under about 15 feet of ash and pumice. It was like the city had been erased from the earth. What makes Pompeii unique as an archaeological site is that the ash and pumice created a perfect mold of everything. When people died, their bodies were covered by ash. Over time, the bodies decomposed, but the ash hardened around where the bodies were, creating hollow spaces. Archaeologists, centuries later, would pour plaster into these hollow spaces and create casts of the people who died. When you see those plaster casts, you're seeing the exact shape of a person from 2,000 years ago. You can see their facial expressions. You can see their muscles. You can see what they were wearing. It's like the volcano took a photograph in 3 dimensions. The ash also preserved everything else. Food that was being prepared was preserved. Graffiti on walls was preserved. The heat was so intense. That wood was turned to charcoal, but it was still there. Bread was baked but preserved. Wine was in the process of fermentation, and it's still there. Entire rooms were preserved with their furniture intact. It's an incredibly detailed snapshot of Roman life. Pompeii was forgotten after the eruption. The surviving population rebuilt elsewhere. The buried city was gradually lost to history. People knew that something had happened, that there had been some great disaster, but the exact location was lost. The city was covered by so much material that it basically disappeared from the landscape. It wasn't until 1748 that Pompeii was rediscovered. Archaeological excavations began, and what archaeologists found was absolutely shocking. Here was an entire Roman city, preserved almost perfectly, frozen in time at the exact moment of disaster. It was like opening a time capsule that had been sealed for 1,700 years. What makes Pompeii so historically important is that it gives us an incredibly detailed picture of what Roman life actually looked like, not the sanitized version that we get from texts and literature, but actual daily life. You can see the houses, you can see the shops, you can see the food, you can see the graffiti, you can see the actual objects that people used and touched. You can see the exact positions where people died. You can see a mother shielding her child. You can see people trying to protect their valuables. You can see families huddled together. There's also something deeply human about Pompeii. These were real people living real lives. They had hopes and dreams. They had families. They had jobs. They had relationships. And then, in the course of a few hours, it was all over. The youngest victims were infants. The oldest were elderly. There were wealthy people and poor people. There were men, women, and children. And then there's the question that haunts you when you visit Pompeii or study it. These people woke up on August 24th knowing it was a normal day. They had no idea that it would be their last day. They had no idea that they would be preserved in ash for 2,000 years. They had no idea that people in the future would be looking at casts of their bodies, trying to understand their last moments. Scientists estimate that between 16,000 and 20,000 people died in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Most died in Pompeii and the neighboring city of Herculaneum, which was also buried. Some died in other towns. The eruption was one of the deadliest natural disasters in human history up to that point. Pompeii has taught us about ancient Rome, but it's also taught us about volcanic eruptions and how to prepare for them. Modern volcanologists use Pompeii as a case study in how quickly disasters can happen and how important it is to take warnings seriously. The people of Pompeii had little warning. They had no system to evacuate. They had no understanding of what was about to happen. Today, we have better warning systems, but the lesson remains the same. Nature is powerful, and sometimes it's more powerful than human civilization. When you stand at Pompeii today, when you walk through the streets, when you see the casts of the people, when you see the preserved buildings and artifacts, you're looking at a moment frozen in time. You're looking at the last day of a city and the last moments of thousands of people. It's one of the most powerful historical sites in the world because it's so real, so immediate.
So human. It's not just a story about what happened in 79 AD. It's a reminder that history is made up of real people and that tragedy can strike at any moment.